The Malcontentment Tango is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live as they happen. To defend the First Amendment, using our rights of a free press and to petition the government for redress of grievances, and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support us is to like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and Instagram. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
Good evening, Seattle, and welcome to another edition of the Malcontentment Happy Hour. I am David, your host, the Malcontent. How's everybody doing tonight? Crazy news cycle today. Crazy. We could do a 3-hour show. We used to do 3-hour shows, and I would just ramble, and I still ramble, and I'm working on it. It's been a journey for 4 years. You know, Yoga Girl is almost 4 years old on the subject of like rambling and like 4-year journey and stuff. And I've actually discussed getting rid of Yoga Girl, and generally the consensus is no. And I don't even know who on the mod team coined the phrase Yoga Girl, and it just stuck. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'd have to come onto the stream just as when it starts. There's this little starting soon roll before we go into the 2-minute roll, before we go to the 10-second roll, and then me. But seriously, crazy news cycle today. And with that, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to jump right into it. And I know that we had our stories, but there's a breaking news story that I've like out of my butt. So hopefully it all works. And with that, let's roll not story one, but the breaking news. You've been naughty, 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 Seattle, again. Today, a few hours ago, federal judge found that the city of Seattle and the actions of the police department were in contempt of the protection order and then of the additional protection order that was placed on August 10th. There was a number of claims in the filing that the ACLU had made on behalf of plaintiffs. There were others that were enjoined in that filing. And what the federal judge found is that there were 4 very clear instances where there were use of force violations. Out of all of the other ones they filed, the judge said, to paraphrase in very non-legal terms, because there's a 27-page legal document that we as a team kind of furiously read through. We got our hands on it about 5:30 today. But basically what it says is this. All the other complaints, no. But this isn't good news for Seattle police because candidly, when I looked at the evidence and I looked at the videos, this was a coin toss for me on yes or no. You went right to the line on the definition was that, and you broke it in these 4 cases. And so let's get into what that means. Here's the court filing. Mods, I know you have a copy of it. If we could put a link in the comments, if one of the mods or admins can drop the link in the comment. Don't read it while I'm talking. You can read it afterwards. But then you have the resource there. The other thing is that we're going to get a lot better at. We're going to get better at chunking out the show into the sections. And when we do that chunk just for this, we'll have a link to the court filing that's there. So this is the finding. It makes for riveting reading if you're into reading court documents. There were 4 key incidences that the courts highlighted. 2 on September 7th, 1 on September 22nd, 1 on September 23rd. Hey, there's a certain TVA station. No, we went back, we reread it 3 times. The The August date is wrong. There's 2 incidents on September 7th. There's one on September 22nd and one on September 23rd. So September 7th, that's the SPOG Labor Day March, the SPOG Labor Day Rally. And so what was happening was, as protesters were moving, so this is after SPOG's initial engagement, and protesters are moving up the road on 4th Avenue South, heading northbound, a SPD bike officer rides up, comes up to some protesters from behind. The protesters are in full compliance by video from multiple angles. They present absolutely no threat. The officer kind of, confronts them a little bit and then pepper sprays them all. That's what OC is. OC is essentially pepper spray. And then pepper sprays all of them, directly targeting them in their face. They presented no threat of harm to the police, to property, to other protesters, to anybody. And so that was contempt finding number 1, this incident on September 7th. The next one also was on September 7th. There was a glass bottle that was thrown. SPD had no suspects. It was on body cams. SPD officers are talking, going, did you see who threw it? I didn't see who threw it. Did you see? I didn't see it. Nobody saw they threw it. Somebody got a flashbang grenade and just indiscriminately threw it into protesters just because. You can't do that because there was no threat or harm. Now, they threw bottles at them. Yes, they threw a bottle, but there was not a barrage of bottles coming anymore. Once the bottle hit the ground and broke, the threat was neutralized. They had no person. They did not know who to throw it at, who to target. So the court felt that this was an excessive use of force. The next incident was on September 22nd, 2020. Officer used blast ball to create separation. That was to move the protesters away from the line of police officers. There was no threat, and that is considered a violation of use for these less lethal munitions. And so this was the third incident. This officer's probably in real trouble with his buddies because he admitted that he did what he did. So I'm just saying, did blue line. The next incident was on September 23rd, 2020. Officers behind several rows of police officers threw a blast ball for no reason over the heads of his fellow officers, despite the fact that there was no threat to themselves or that line of officers. And that also was considered a violation of use of force per the federal temporary restraining order and per the additional restraining order that came down on August 10th. So what's the next steps? City of Seattle has until December 11th to respond. The response can be no more than 6 pages, and the court will then deem what the remedy will be by or on December 18th. So this is breaking news that's come out of Seattle and from the federal courts. We filmed on the 7th. And of course, we did our in-depth analysis on Corona Beer Box Dude, and we also filmed on the 23rd. We did not film on the 22nd. We technically filmed on the 24th, only because the 23rd carried over until almost like 1:30 or 2 in the morning, if I remember correctly. So we filmed. I think that was a borderline record day. I think we went about 7.5 hours on the 23rd and 24th. And again, the other thing is that the other incidents, the finding of the judge was there was nothing in there of like, quit your crying. There's nothing to complain about. The judge's view, and the judge states clearly in the filing, nobody should be going, there was only 4. The rest of them, the judge is like, no, you shouldn't be happy about this because the rest of them, it's so close to the line. Like somebody else could have looked at it and gone the other way. Again, paraphrasing what's in the document, that's not legalese. So that is the advanced story. And then that leads into our next story. And our next story is also a breaking news story. And that's actually story number 1 tonight. What did the protesters want for demand number 5? Jenny Durkin to resign. Well, Jenny Durkin's not resigning, but Jenny Durkin has said she is not going to seek a second term for election. So I'm just wondering when Andre Taylor and Ari Hoffman are going to announce their candidacies for running for mayor of the city of Seattle. There's a couple other people I could snarkily say I'm wondering when they're going to announce their And I realize those two are like that on the spectrum. But this would not shock me to see this on either side. I don't know who would be shocked by this news. It's certainly been my view, and I've editorialized that Jenny Durkan is probably, like, if you go to the top 50 or top 100 cities by population in the United States, is quite possibly the least popular mayor in those cities. There may be somebody less popular than her, but darn it, then you are really trying, and we salute you. So the reason that I say that is the political right's mad at her, the political left's mad at her, the centrists are mad at her, the protesters are mad at her, the police are mad at her, the federal government's mad at her, everybody's mad at her. I will say that she has put on a relatively brave face through all of this. And we have a video that we've prepared. The video's about 5.5, 6 minutes long. So bear with it through the video. But we would like to call this our memory roll of Jenny Durkan.
Memories.
Jenny Durkan, please repeat after me. I, Jenny A. Durkan,
I, Jenny A. Durkan,
swear that I possess
swear that I possess
all the qualifications prescribed in the Seattle City Charter
prescribed in the Seattle City Charter
and the Seattle Municipal Code
and the Seattle Municipal Code
for the position of mayor.
The rise in homelessness comes when the West Coast economy is booming, pulling in more people. In Seattle, tech companies like Amazon have brought in thousands of people earning high salaries.
And now they're going to have a passport to Seattle. A passport to Seattle. And we're here in Rainier Beach because of the activism of these students demanding equality and equity and saying we deserve a way to get to our school fairly. We're going to go get a hockey team. Simple thing. All we have to do is sell Seattle, right?
And how do you do that?
We do that, the fans do it. It's all about the fans in Seattle. We already showed by the way we sold out the tickets, but these are businessmen who are looking at how this franchise is going to affect the hockey across the country and in Canada.
Seattle's Licton Springs neighborhood is a little cleaner tonight because of a group of volunteers. You see them right there working really hard. Residents and businesses in the area have complained about dirty needles and trash left behind by substance abusers living in the neighborhood's homeless encampment. So today, a few dozen people, some who were once homeless themselves, came out to clean things up. Volunteers say the city hasn't made enough progress in addressing homelessness.
Yes, the mayor's office announced a plan to sell 3 plots of land known as the Mercer Mega Block, located between 9th Ave and Aurora, for a reported $143 million. The mayor's office says the deal will generate $300 million in taxpayer benefits.
And thank you, Councilmember Mosqueda, for your continued devotion and commitment to making Seattle a more affordable and inclusive city that you share with many of the council members who have pushed very hard for these kinds of investments. In the last 2 years, together, we have taken bold actions to make our progressive values real in people's lives. Because of our shared actions and commitment, I can tell you today the state of our city is strong and resilient.
Seattle leaders are now grappling over how and when to increase the supply of market rate and affordable housing.
So laundry, this is one of the sleeping rooms.
In West Coast cities, voters have approved more than $8 billion on affordable housing and other homelessness programs since 2015.
They're trying to box us in. So they're basically, what SPD is doing right now with their bikes is they are pushing the people into the flashbang grenades. SPD is actively pushing the people into the line of fire.
How long do you think Seattle in those few blocks looks like this?
I don't know. We could have the summer of love.
Well, Tell that to the police, who was supposed to be in that precinct, though. But I understand your sentiment, Mayor.
Let's get right to your answers. When asked, do you approve or disapprove of the job Jenny Durkan is doing as mayor of Seattle, 36% of those asked approve, a quarter disapprove. When asked if she should stay in office, 46% say yes.
That legal observer has been pushed down. We have that on camera. Legal observer pushed down. Flashbangs are going. Fireworks going off. Oh, it's spicy.
Meantime, Mayor Jenny Durkan in Seattle is responding tonight to a letter from the Seattle Human Rights Commission calling for her to resign.
Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan will not seek re-election. Good morning, I'm Mimi Jung. We're following breaking news.
Durkan made this decision, I am told, within the last couple of weeks after discussing it.
Members of the City Council, my fellow elected officials from around the state, veterans, community leaders, members of the clergy, tribal members, my cabinet members, and my family and friends. Good morning. Good morning. It is so great to get out of City Hall.
Ironic.
Truly an ironic statement that she made in February 2020. Both, one thing we can't begrudge her is the sense of hope that 2020 and what 2020 was going to bring in February. But also that was her intro about it was so good to get out of City Hall with the laughter. And big thanks to some folks that helped me pull that video together again, like Jenny Durkan resigned, we need something. It's an interesting history, right, when you look back. Some of the things that jump out at me is one of the things that she talks about in February of 2020, Mayor Durkan, is progressive values. She used these words, our progressive values. And I'm like heard that and forget everything that happened from May 30 forward, really June 1 forward. I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean progressive values? Personally, I feel Jenny Durkan won because she was more of a centrist, and I felt that people in the city of Seattle were getting tired of the hard pull left. So just this whole thing of like labeling herself a progressive just was like, what are you talking about? And there were some policies that we know are completely failed under her. The homelessness problem, the issue for the people that are unhomed in our city, is still this huge problem. Tonight, the people that call Cal Anderson home, the unhomed there are literally in terror. I have had, they're coming now. Wait a minute, no, they're not. They're coming now, right? Like all flipping day today. And, what the word is SPD and some agitators that are kind of aligned with the Seattle Police Department are, if you forgive the vernacular, they're rattling the cage, right? They're going there and they're kind of, hey, we're gonna scare the unhomed. Don't forget, when the Seattle Police did a sweep in August at Cal Anderson, they, as the unhomed were watching their stuff getting thrown into trash dumpsters, some Seattle police officers took the food that mutual aid had collected, and instead of going, okay, this is the food for the unhomed, here you go, we're literally eating the food in front of them. It's cruel, it's dystopian. That happened under progressive Mayor Jenny Durkan's watch. There's another thing that I want to call out. There's actually a couple of things. But the next one I want to call about is this mega block, this Mercer sale, the mega block of $143 million. So what the city of Seattle did was they took this property that the city owned. Now, when I say the city owns, what that means is we, the people, the residents of Seattle, you owned that property. Instead of developing it for the unhomed, instead of turning it into a park, instead of turning it into some community resource, they sold it for $143 million. And under the banner of that money will create $300 million of value for the city. And part of that was some of that money was going to go, not all $143 million, but a chunk of that money was going to go into the BIPOC communities in South Seattle. All they had to do to get access to that money was submit a plan or a study to the city. And so people submitted plans and studies to the city. And guess what the city did? The city does what they always do. They just sat on the plans that were submitted. Nothing moved forward. Do you know how much of that $143 million and then the slice of it that was earmarked to go to BIPOC communities went to BIPOC communities? Zero. None. Not 1 cent. And then what the city did was, under Mayor Durkin's direction, was they yanked that money back. Because they said, well, we haven't spent a penny of it. So why should we continue to keep this on the table? And then cynically, in the 2021 budget, they popped $100 million in there, again, for BIPOC communities. But the BIPOC community leadership is going, you already promised this. Not only that, you're not even giving us $100 million. You just took money away that you wouldn't allocate to us, even though we did what you asked us to do. And now you've thrown it into this other program. And all we have to do is submit a study and a plan, and you'll release the money to us. You see where this is going? Another thing that happened on Jenny Durkin's watch on the issue of affordable housing is 88% of Seattle's residential areas that are zoned residential are zoned for single-family homes. It is very challenging in Seattle, even if you want to put in, say, an ADU. It's gotten easier, but if we go to the beginning of her terms, it was near impossible. And what has been built in the 12% of land that was dedicated to having high-density housing are very, very small condos, very, very small apartments, mostly luxury condos, mostly luxury apartments, no parking spaces attached to them. And they're unaffordable. And not only are they unaffordable, but now, because of COVID, the residents that live in those condos and apartments are literally fleeing the city. And rent is depressed 20%. Now, that's a whole separate topic, and we're going to get into that probably on Thursday. Full stop here. The issue of affordable housing has just been a disaster in Seattle. It's not fully Jenny Durkin's fault, because the mayors before her have been kicking this can down the highway. They make a lot of kind of, hey, we're doing this and we're doing that, but then nothing really comes of it. You know, we got the NHL. Great. We got the NHL and we're rebuilding Key Arena. I'll have to see Key Arena after it's rebuilt and COVID has been figured out. I will say this, I've been in other stadiums in the country, and before, let me put it this way. I went to a Sonics game, we still had the Sonics, and I know that's a long time ago, and I'm in Key Arena. And I sat in Key Arena, watched the Sonics game, and I was like, I don't understand what the problem is with Key Arena. Seriously, I was like, I don't understand what the problem is with Key Arena. Then I went to Houston, and I went to the new arena where the Rockets play, and I can't remember the name of that particular arena. They had built the new one. And when I got into that arena, then I was like, man, Key Arena is an outdated, awful, uncomfortable pit with terrible seats and terrible views of what's going on and watching a game. It is awful. We had a private investor that was like, I will pay for most of the stadium. Most cities don't get that. Most cities have to write big fat checks to get stadiums built. This dude was like, I'm willing to build a stadium down where all the other stadiums are. Key Arena can just go to, like be a concert venue. Oh no. Like so typical flippin' Seattle. Again, not all that's on Jenny Durkin. Now let's fast forward to May 30. And what happened then on the Western Barricade on June 1 through June 7th. And to this day, and we put this in our story that we have on malcontentment.com, we put this on our story, that we don't know to this day who gave the order to leave the East Precincts. We know this. Jenny Durkin says she didn't do it. Carmen Best said she didn't do it. So then who did it? Because this right becomes a big question. And I know that some people have floated around unsubstantiated that it was SPOG leadership that was like, well, forget it, we're pulling out. But if that's the case, that is an incredible failure of leadership on Jenny Durkin's part, and at the time, Chief Carmen's best part. And if Jenny Durkin can't get in front of a camera and even say who in her police department gave the order, that is a breakdown in leadership in a city at a time when we desperately needed leadership. And what we saw was, and this ties back, see how I tied that together with the court case, right? What we see with the contempt filing that came in today, or the contempt decision from the federal court, is the federal court oversight continues to see the heavy hand coming down from the Seattle Police Department on protesters trying to exercise their First Amendment rights. So Seattle's going to get a new mayor on November 2nd, 2021. Buckle your seatbelt, Seattle, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. And with that, we're going to roll our first spot.
Black Coffee is a hub for communities and a hub for meeting people, making friends, and understanding.
What Black Coffee is to me is a place to actually call home, a place where Black youth will feel welcomed, where Black families will come and feel like they're at home.
What we're trying to build is more than just coffee. Community is something that we do naturally. We know who's in the community, we know what the deficits are, and we're trying to fix that. We want to bring people together.
My hope is that the phrase grounded in excellence shows up everywhere and that it becomes a movement.
I'm looking forward to hanging out at Black Coffee with my friends and feeling safe.
Black Coffee to me means opportunity for people like me and my other friends and family to come here and do homework safely and hang out and stuff like that.
That is happening. It is happening.
All right, and we're back. Can you guess where I went on Saturday? Huh? Can you get? I'm waiting for the lower third to disappear there. Go on, lower third. Say your bye-byes. There it goes. Can you guess where I went on Saturday? So I finally, it was my third attempt. The first time that I went there, they shut it down because there were so many people. They were like, we're overwhelmed, we're done, we're running out of stuff, we're really, really sorry. Went there a second time and the line was so long. Great problem to have, right? I was like, okay. So we tried a third time. The third time was the charm. And I will say this. I've talked about Black Coffee and I've talked about the excitement of going there previously because after filming the documentary in Africa in February, one of the things I learned is that American coffee is awful. And I experienced the same thing when I was in Europe. Every time I travel internationally, I generally come back and I'm like, oh, God, coffee in the mainland United States is terrible. Hawaii is incrementally better. Coffee in Nicaragua was okay, but it was on the weak side. The electric coffee, they're into bland food. I want a rat hole on that. We'll just stick to black coffee. But African coffee from Africa, and the roasting process they do is something really special. And you're not really going to understand that unless you go to Africa. And their coffee is really, really good. My wife and I both, Dr. and Mrs. Malcontent, were like, this is really good. The other thing is, we had a blueberry scone. We had a roasted potato scone. Oh my God, the potato scone was the food of the frickin' gods. If you like potatoes and you like scones, get the roasted potato scones. And when can you do that? Black Coffee is open Monday through Saturday, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And on Saturdays, they are open from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And for some reason, I feel like I got something wrong there. But that's... Mods, correct me if I got something wrong. Shell, I did see your question, and I did mean to get to it before we got to Section 2, which I know for you watchers is Section 3. And I don't know what the disposition is on the individual, on the young woman who had the blast ball thrown directly at her on the 7th of June. I do know that she has chronic injuries from that incident, and I know that she is enjoined in a lawsuit against a civil lawsuit against the city with, I believe, about maybe 40 other plaintiffs that are involved. And that will probably be a long process for that court hearing. And so with that, we get ready to go into our next story. I'm looking at buttons if you couldn't figure it out. Again, we were like setting this up right to the last minute. Our next story is a national montage. And with that, I'm just going to roll the video and then we're going to talk about it.
A Democratic chairwoman of that House committee is now receiving death threats because of the election.
Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is speaking out tonight about the startling weekend protests right outside her own home. People showed up late Saturday, some carrying guns to protest claims of election fraud.
They have people doing caravans around their house. They've had people come onto their property. Trisha, his wife of 40 years, is getting sexualized threats through her cell phone.
Tonight, another round of threatening letters containing a kill list has been sent to leaders in Portland's black community.
Joe DeGenova today asked for Chris Krebs, a patriot who ran CISA, to be shot.
One of the protest organizers, Joey Gibson, tells me while the employee did not come out of his home, he hopes he heard their message.
We begin with that chaotic arrest of a Staten Island bar manager who is defying COVID-19 restrictions. Investigators say the man hit a sheriff's deputy with his car overnight, dragging him for about 100 yards.
This group here all carrying what appear to be AR-15s, and they have handguns on their hip as well. There's another gentleman here with a rifle and strapped to his chest.
Also new tonight, Arizona's top election official is reporting a death threat.
I'm just like, oh my God.
It has all gone too far.
This section is brought to you by Soup for your family. So what we have going on in our country right now, and I've written about this and I'm going to talk about it tonight. If you think about the stages of grief, the stages of grief have 5 distinct stages. There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, sadness, and acceptance. For those who are Trump supporters, who firmly believe that the election is being stolen, that believe the dangerous rhetoric that has been spouted by the president and by a shrinking number of his supporters, and his number is shrinking faster at this point than Hitler in the Führer bunker. But for those people, they are still in denial. And what's happening is that some of them are starting to get the reality that the clock is running out. And we're going to talk about the clock is running out. And the next step that is going to go into that is anger. And anger is typically expressed, as we can see, with violence. All of those clips are within the last 4 days. Want to make that, let me say that again. All of that little montage of clips of increasing violent acts from the political right, including people shot, people run over, officials threatened with guns at their home, death threats by phone and email, threats of sexual assault. All of that has happened in the last 4 to 5 days, and it is not going to get better. It will get worse before it will get better, because there is a subset of people that have become radicalized from this message. And this is why we're seeing this lashing out. What I found very interesting in the video, that very short clip we had from Olympia that pulls from Daily Kos, which pulls from multiple other streamers, and we ran a very short clip of that, is that the people that are clustered around that car, and everybody's, the ones look like, oh, sorry, and the other one's okay, they're protesters from both sides. That isn't people from the left or right that clustered around that. That's everybody clustered around it in fear with the gun. You see with that guy with the gun, it isn't just Black Bloc protesters running. His own people are running. When that shot got fired, and there's another camera angle that shows that, there is an audible gasp that comes from both sides, and everybody stops. Yeah, it's all fun and games with the pepper spray and the bear mace and the water bottles and poking people with flags. It's all fun and games to bring the guns and pretend you're threatening and macho until somebody actually pulls one of those guns out and makes a really bad decision. And we've seen this happen over and over again. The actions of the Olympia Police Department are deplorable on what happened on that day, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I agree with the Secretary of State from the state of Georgia. It is all going too far. And this could potentially devolve into something very, very ugly that I don't think as a country we really want to go to. But I don't know how we stop the crazy train either. But I do know that if you are going out to protest, particularly if you are protesting for causes that are on the left, you should realize that you are going into a potentially very hostile environment where all it's going to take is one bad actor to make some really bad decisions. With that, we're going to roll to our next commercial.
To the side. Music has a power greater than words can really express. Songbird, sing a song to me. Let me know where I'm supposed to be. It's such a shame, yeah. Well, I was your TV girl. The EP is called Blue, and my website is classicelishamusic.com.
I hit premature button press. You could do with that what you want. Also, don't forget, Bumblebee tuna, the most aerodynamic tuna known to man. If you need aerodynamic tuna, you want Bumblebee tuna. We give that 2 squeaks of the squeaky protest pig. Okay, and with that, we move into our next story. Without the premature opening button press. All right, and we're going to go to Olympia on Saturday, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about this individual, Chris Gunzler. I hope I am saying his name correctly. Chris Gunzler has been arrested. He is facing 2 charges. He was being held without bail. When we checked on Sunday, did not check today, he did not have an attorney. There was not an arraignment hearing or a bail hearing scheduled. I actually would presume there was a bail hearing today, but we're a small organization. There's too much going on. We didn't have a chance to check. It is possible there wasn't a bail hearing because let's see, he would have been arrested Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So bail hearing actually might go till Tuesday because he has been charged. He is charged with first-degree assault. In the state of Washington, first-degree assault is essentially attempted murder. The state of Washington and RCW does not have attempted murder. So first-degree assault, if you read the definition of first-degree assault, it is essentially attempted murder with sentencing sentencing guidelines of 8 to 25 years. He is charged because when he discharged his weapon, he struck an individual, a woman. That person has not been identified, and we have not pursued identifying who that person is. Their story, they do explain their story a little bit on Twitter on how when they realized they were shot and what happened next. The second charge they're facing is second-degree assault. So second-degree assault in the state of Washington is felony assault. And so where first-degree assault is like big, bad, awful felony, this is just slightly big, bad, awful felony. Combined on the maximum setting guidelines on 2, Gunzler could be looking at 45 years in prison. The reality is, if we presume he's a first-time offender, there is nothing that's come out that says he has a previous criminal record. But if he is a first-time offender, if he were sentenced on both crimes, it is highly unlikely he would get the 45 years on there. So at this point, we define him as a suspect because he has been arrested. He is not a person of interest. He has moved up the food chain in those. So what do we know about Chris Gunzler? We have a story up on Malcontentment.com. You can go to Malcontentment.com and read it, but we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit of what we know about Chris. The picture that we have up there from Chris is from his social media footprint. It's from Facebook. It's from 2016. So as recent or as far out as 4 years ago, Chris was having white nationalist ideation. There are other pictures of him with what appears to be people off-roading or a car club or a party or group of people where there are multiple Confederate flags present. So again, there is this white nationalist ideation that is deep within him. If you go on his Facebook page is still live. Which is kind of interesting to me because typically when somebody gets into this kind of trouble, their social media footprint goes, it just disappears really fast. And there is nobody in Chris's circle that is going, yeah, let's suspend his Facebook page so people can't keep looking at it. There is a ton of very sexualized content, and his likes and follows hundreds of pages that have objectification of women and very sexualized content. He is a follower of conspiracy theories. He is a follower of Trump. He is a supporter of Trump. There's pictures up there with him with the Trump flags. Interestingly, Chris was at Jay Inslee's house on Thanksgiving Day. Washington State Patrol. We're going to talk a little bit about that one. Chris was at Jay Inslee's house on Bainbridge Island at a event that was set up there to protest not wearing masks. Protesters blocked the road. I thought you weren't supposed to block the road. Protesters basically co-opted a individual's front lawn, not Jay Inslee's, but another person without their permission. I thought you were supposed to respect property rights. And they continued to then protest outside of the governor's house. I thought you weren't supposed to go to officials' house. Chris was there, and Chris actually talked to the Kitsap Sun newspaper. He was the lead name in their interview, and they had there. And he was there because he wants his right to work and his freedoms in America. You can go to the Kitsap Sun and you can read that story up there. Bard's Eye News streamed that event. We shared the stream as a watch party on our page with the caveat of we don't agree with what's going on. We don't agree with the views expressed with Bard's Eye News. But with that, this is news, so we're going to go ahead and show it to you. And what happened is there were a series of speeches that were going on outside of Jay Inslee's house. And as the day wore on, those speeches got angrier and angrier and angrier until there was an individual that was basically saying, to paraphrase, it was not Chris Gunzler, but it basically was, screw Lauren Culp, screw him telling us not to paraphrase, take direct action. We've got to do more. We've got to get more aggressive. So they're kind of making threats out of the governor's house. And there was at least one state police cruiser that was there. But, we've covered a lot of marches, including marches that have gone to multiple officials' homes. No one's ever brought a gun. Nobody's ever uttered a threat at any official. Nobody has ever screamed or yelled at officials and said, let's just say, general awful things. But that was going on inside the Jay's house. But you know what? The Washington State Patrol was totally cool with it, because in some of the shots we could see that there was a Washington State Patrol police cruiser. And what the word was they were blocking the street, just in case somebody comes along and decides to drive through them, because I thought protesters were supposed to keep out of the streets. I mean, chuds.
Chud. It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
These are chuds. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
That's what you say, right? I mean, that's what you say. And anytime somebody gets a person drives their car through protesters, it's, well, they should have common sense to stay out of the road. We certainly at the Malcontentment News do not advocate running over protesters, regardless of your political stripes. And we are defenders of the First Amendment. And you're not. Yes, we are. And I have even defended Katie Daviscourt on camera when she got maced. And I reminded Katie of that. But Katie forgot that reminder. And that's a whole nother discussion for another day. This ties into the other story. And what we're seeing happen is in Olympia, Vancouver, these areas are becoming real hotbeds for action now. Portland's quieting down a little bit. Yeah, I know Portland got spicy yesterday, and there were 3 arrests if you connect all the dots for basically no reason. You could get maybe trespassing at the ICE thing. I know. But Portland has gotten way quieter than, say, where it was 30 or 45 days ago. Seattle has gotten much quieter than, say, with November 30th is kind of the last, right? But we're seeing Vancouver and we are seeing Olympia heat up. Well, why are they heating up? Well, Olympia is the state capital. That makes sense. But Vancouver is basically Proud Boy Central. Vancouver, Washington just might as well be the world headquarters for the Proud Boy movement. And let's not forget what the AP calls the Proud Boys. They call them a extreme right-wing terrorist organization. And with that, we're going to roll commercial.
The Malcontentment Tango is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live as they happen. To defend the First Amendment, using our rights of a free press and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support us is to like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and Instagram. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
And we do thank you. And this would be a good moment for me to remind everybody, your mods and admins are paid in hearts, and they are working very hard monitoring 3 channels right now. So spam those hearts, Facebook and Periscope and Twitter watchers. Spam those hearts and let the mods and admins know that you love them and appreciate everything that they do, because I wouldn't be able to function without them. They keep me on the straight and narrow. Likewise, if you are on YouTube or on Twitch, you can go ahead and just put a whole bunch of hearts up there or say thank you mods or something like that. I had a chance during that spot to read some of your comments. Yes, this is why I have a plate receiver. This is why I have plates. This is why I wear a helmet. This is why I wear a cup. This is why I wear knee pads. This is why I endeavor to keep in shape. But likewise, and I've had this conversation with other streamers, I'm not going to get into the full in-depth of the tactics and strategies that I have to protect myself if things go completely sideways. But the reality is protesters, people, journalists, people in the media, streamers, and average citizens shouldn't have to dress up this way to exercise their First Amendment rights. And the other thing that I kind of skipped about, which I'm going to go back for, which was talking about the conduct of the police in Olympia during this event. So while this is happening, that both sides are fighting, the Olympia police were kind of like, you want to defund and get rid of the police department. I've already said multiple times, I'm not an abolitionist. That shouldn't be a secret to anybody at this point. And I have defined defund as unburden or demilitarize. But if somebody goes out and commits a murder, I do think that we need police to investigate the murder and find who did the murder and charge the person with the murder so that that can go through the courts. However, I want an equitable process for that to happen. And the other thing is say, if somebody calls up because somebody's car is 2 inches blocking their driveway, why should a city or a town in the United States of America have to send a commissioned officer and the expense of sending that commissioned officer to go, okay, I know you called 3.5 hours ago, and I was really dreading to come on this call, but all right, Karen, go ahead and let me know about the neighbor. Have you tried knocking on their door? Oh, you want me to go knock on their door. Okay, I'll go. Yeah, your neighbor's can. I know, she's a little, but can you just move the car? Why? Why do you need an armed officer for that? But when people are literally beating each other senseless on the streets and guns are getting pulled out and pointed at people, that's when the police are kind of supposed to do their job. And if the police aren't going to do their job, then why have police? But then here's the other thing, because if you watch some of those other videos from that day, there was this real taunting, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, someone's not going to do it. You're a flipping idiot for doing that, because you know what? You're operating in this mental space that leftists don't have guns. I promise you, leftists have guns and know how to use them. I promise you. And someone somewhere is going to be egging and egging and egging. And just as it works on the other side, someone's going to get pushed hard enough and they're going to show them what they're going to do. We can't have this. This has to stop. And the police have clearly picked sides. And the Chuds.
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
The Chuds, they know it. They know sides have been picked. And we also know some of those who work forces are the same who burn crosses, because we know that among the ranks of those officers, there are some of them that are Proud Boys and 3%ers and Quanon subscribers.
You're not the same. I'm an American. You're a sick asshole.
And so that's where we're at. I did see the comments about, hey, you don't have a category picked for Twitch. So I've been reading them while the videos are running and stuff. Yeah, hit me up in a PM on that, or send an email to the website and we'll get that figured out. Because honestly, I mean, I was aware of Twitch and I'd watched Twitch, but when it came to broadcasting on Twitch and using Twitch on that other side of the house, I'm still kind of a noob in that space. I will freely admit that. And I know that among our moderator team, or on our extended moderator and admin team, we don't necessarily have anybody that's super strong on Twitch. Which, by the way, if somebody is like super strong at technology back end and you're a supporter of what we do, we could always use another volunteer. We could, yeah. Because Yoda is useless for this kind of stuff. Absolutely useless. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move into our final story tonight. Our final story brings us back to Keisha and Sarah of the Ally League. If you didn't watch on Thursday, why didn't you watch on Thursday? Why? We put a lot of work into this stuff. All right, if you didn't watch on Thursday, you missed the Ally League. The Ally League is an organization that has been created, a business that has been created to help amplify Black business and help to break the barriers of systemic racism. And the first thing that they're offering over here that they just announced on November 29th is something called Black Box. There's Mini Black Box and Premier Black Box. And Black Box is filled with yummy and delicious items and practical items that are made by Black businesses. Things such as Honey Water, which Honey Water is a brand, HUNNI, which is infused water. And actually, I was like not aware of the brand, but then I realized like, whoa, Honey Water's like everywhere. Like they're kicking butt. And candles and cookies and the wonderful coffee, the same coffee that you can get at Black Coffee Northwest in Shoreline. And their hours, I was right where I was like, I think they changed their Saturday hours, and they did, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays. But anyway, Black Coffee Northwest, they have you can get that same coffee there if you just want to get the coffee. The other thing is they sell stocking stuffers. You can go to their website, the Ally League, ALLY, league.com. Keisha had these amazing glasses, which you're going to see in a minute. She looks like a superhero. It's amazing. Her glasses are amazing. We showed the part of their interview that we did with them last week that covered about Black Box. But I did want to go ahead and kind of call everything out was there. But we also had another discussion. And I'd love to share that discussion and then have closing on that. And then we'll go to your comments, and you get to look at the top of my head as I look down on this screen over here to see your comments. And with that, we're going to roll that clip.
I am Keisha Rogers, and I am a co-founder of the Ally League, a company I started with a good friend of mine, Sarah So, to help amplify and promote and support Black-owned businesses in an effort to help dismantle systemic racism.
Hello, hello. Am I getting the camera? Good.
You're in the camera.
Okay, great. Hello, I am Sarah So. I am the co-founder of the Ally League with Keisha. We just started this recently, as Keisha said, to really help support the Black community and find ways to help people be actively anti-racist.
What is a misconception or a misunderstanding that people have that you really wish that they understood better?
That's a tough question because there are several of them. One that immediately comes to mind is that, as I've mentioned before, that products products by Black companies are for Black people, and that is that's the lane we're in and want to stay in. That's definitely not the case. As people who have purchased a Black box and received it have mentioned, they're fantastic things that are universal, things that are universally needed, used, and consumed.
I think people believe that the white community needs to help or teach the Black community, but I have learned more from the Black community, and I think they have more to offer our suburban white community. We just need to interface and learn from them and their resilience, their positivity, their community support of each other. Like, just every time I meet a Black person or a Black business owner or that activist that we've been talking to, the mutual aid concept, there is so much to be learned about community from the Black community, and grace and resilience and optimism. Like, their history is so tragic, and yet here they are, like, functioning and thriving in a community that is not set up for them, or a society that is not set up for them. The reason I want to put white teenagers into Black communities locally is so that white people can learn from Black people, not vice versa.
I absolutely agree that there are so many things that white people and others can learn from the Black community. And I also think that it's really important to, one of the other misconceptions is that fighting racism is hard, and that you have to be exceptionally bold, and you have to be really forward, and you have to protest, and there are so many different ways to actively be anti-racist. And one of the misconceptions is unless you are doing something big, you're not doing anything at all. And what we want to show is it's the small things, it's the everyday choices that you make that make the biggest impact. It's how you spend your money, it's how you spend your time. It's looking at the friends around you and seeing how many of the friends look, act, and behave exactly like you do, and how many don't. And if you notice that there are some homogeneity, then that means that you need to mix things up, because that's really the way that that people learn, grow, and learn to be more inclusive.
It's a great conversation that they had there, and it's really a great points that they brought up. The issue of cancel culture and the issue of enabling people, particularly allies, to make mistakes, to step on landmines. I have stepped on landmines for the last 6 months, and I will continue to step on landmines for the rest of my life. And I was stepping on landmines prior to the last 6 months, but I wasn't even aware that I was stepping on them at the time. It is a journey. I have been very fortunate that I have been around people who were patient or would pull me aside. Hey, dude, not cool. And this is why. And I'm like, okay. And I think what has happened over time is like, okay, fine, it's grandpa. And, you know, grandpa is learning, and we're going to give grandpa a pass on this stuff because grandpa's willing to learn on this particular stuff. And I have learned so much. And that was one of the other points that I love that Sarah made. There are times when I would say to people, if you want to be a white ally, you know what, one of the best things you can do when there's a black person talking, just shut up. Just shut up and listen. Not listen to respond. Listen to absorb. One of the biggest mistakes that I have seen white allies make over and over again, we saw this happen at the Back the Blue rally, where I get really emotional when I think about that. Here is this woman. She is incredible pain. Here is this black man. They are both in incredible pain. And they're both, right? They're both talking. And I know that she tried to commiserate. She tried to find the common ground when she said through tears, I know what it's like to lose a child. But the part that I don't think that she understood is, one, it just wasn't the thing to say. And it was like one of those things that if the camera wasn't rolling, if I was there, I actually would have tried in the moment to, but I'm filming what's happening. And that was my role in that particular thing. It's one thing but black parents are losing their children at a stunning rate. There's a study that we connected to that came out from the University of Washington, studying interactions of teenagers starting from the 8th grade until 20 years old. In that study, they compared white to black here in the Seattle area, and this is what they discovered. 53% of white people, white teenagers in that study, over the period of 8th grade to their 20th birthday, admitted to committing some kind of criminality, doing some kind of criminal act. Because most people, 53, come on. We were all teenagers. We all did stupid shit. We all did stupid shit as teenagers. For blacks in the survey, it was 32%. But guess what? If you were black between 8th grade and 20, when they did up all the math, you were 11 times more likely, so more than an order of magnitude, to be arrested by the Seattle Police Department. Or potentially King County. There's a few miles of unincorporated Seattle that King County covers. 11 times. This is a UW study. We connected to it maybe over the weekend. I think over the weekend. Might have been on Friday, but it might have been over the weekend. It's on our Facebook. And I know that you can find it there. I don't think we put it on the Twitter. We have so many channels. It's amazing. I think it's incumbent on people, and this isn't just, Keisha talked about this as a woman who's black. I'm talking about this as a white accomplice. I think it's incumbent that when people are trying, and that was the message. It's one thing when people are just, and they don't want to learn and listen. That's different. When people are trying and they really want to understand, canceling them out only hurts moving the whole mission of Black Lives Matter and equality. true equality further behind. And again, there's a key difference between someone who makes a mistake, is willing to listen to the mistake and be treated like an adult when they're being told the mistake that they've made. And it's a genuine mistake out of ignorance or not understanding, or back to this example, I want to commiserate with you. It just wasn't the right thing to say. The right thing actually for her to say in that moment was nothing. She was listening with the intent to respond. One of the biggest things that I've had to learn over most of 2020 is listening not with the intent to respond, but listening with the intent of just to listen. Because then when you respond, what you respond with is more profound. And sometimes what you respond with is, thank you, I appreciate that, I really do, and I'm going to try better. Because a lot of times, for the Black community, that's what they really want to hear if somebody is respectfully calling somebody out. Anyway, that's my opinion on it. You're free to tell me I'm wrong in the comments. There they are. And with that, now you get to see the top of my head for a few minutes as I go to your comments. Also, one of the other things I'm going to do, I can look on here. I hate when it does that. Okay, cool. There's nothing from the admin or mod team. I'm like, there's something wrong, or you missed this question. Are those glasses amazing or what, Jason? I'm like, it's just like, she's an inverse superhero, right? It's like, these aren't my superhero glasses, but they're to make you wonder, what do I do at 2 a.m, leaping from building to building? It's the Ally League. I mean, even the name of the Ally League. Uh-huh. We're on to you. Superheroes. They're superheroes. Uh-huh. You heard it here first. Yes, that's exactly it. They're losing them to murder. That is spot on, and that's the part that I think that woman missed. And I would even say in that moment, well, what if had died from police violence in that moment, in that very minute? Just listen. They were so close. It's like that is a moment that will be etched in my head of the experiences that I've lived through in the last 6+ months now. That particular one, it still takes my breath away in both a positive and in a very, very sad way. It's certainly not etched in my memory because I've got explosives going off all around me or something like that. I certainly have some memories that are etched around that. Completely agree with that. I completely agree that First Nations, the exact same thing. They need to be listened to with the intent to just listen, not with the intent to reply. Really, it's for all of the minority communities, because even among model minorities, and we did in a earlier show, we talked about the term model minorities and why that is a negative thing and how that holds back the minority community. And that when you really dive into the data, even among the groups that people consider model minority, Southeast Asians, and Southeast Asians, Chinese Asians in general, the reality is they are still at a disadvantage when you look at them as a group over all of white America. Because the thing is that people think of like, well, the Chinese, the Japanese, but there's the Hmong as a very example, right? The mountain people that are out of Cambodia. There's people from Myanmar, and these groups, even within their communities, those within the slices of the Asian community, they're at a disadvantage from other minorities in that group. It's a very, very complex issue, and we had talked about it in a previous show. You figured us out. I'm going to presume that is either Keisha or Sarah from the Ally League that commented on there. You figured us out. Leaping from building to building, it is the Ally League. Hey, can you do something about these?
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
It would be really great, but all in jest. So let's see what else we got here. At least the roles taken around the. Oh, updated Black Coffee Hours for the holidays. So we have more updated information. Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. I wish I had known that. Wow. Have the same issue on people. You know, the trans thing, human sexuality, I'll talk about this, and I think we're going to close the show on a topic that's going to make everyone really uncomfortable. Human sexuality to me, I don't know why people are so uptight about it. I say that as somebody who is very comfortable in my sexuality. I am hopelessly heterosexual cis male. And I will proudly declare that on the air. But on the other side of the coin, whether somebody is gay, whether somebody is trans, whether somebody is non-binary, like none of this stuff makes me go, like none of it. And it really never has. And I've talked about my past. I grew up in a town that was so white. How white was it? I grew up in a town that was so white that when a black family moved into town, it was in the newspaper on basically, look how progressive we have become as a town. There's a black family that lives here now. That's my mouth to God. That's the truth. I lived in a town that was so white that when people that were coming on the Vietnamese boat people were arriving in the United States, they had a school. I remember this as a little kid, real little kid, because they were coming in the late 70s. I'm a little kid. And they had the assembly in school. And the gist of the assembly is like, hi, there's going to be some kids in the school and they don't speak English and they don't look like you. And they're going to be really quiet, really scared, and really shy. And some of your parents are going to be really hateful about it because their parents were killing their parents, like 10, 15 years ago. Well, I guess it's not even that far. Say like 10 years ago, their parents were killing their parents like 10 years ago, and they're still really pissed off about it. And we're not going to tolerate you being mean to these kids. So you be nice to them. And I remember they were very, very quiet, and they actually lived down the road from the road that we were on. The family lived on a farm. Again, I grew up in a very, very small town in New England, and the family lived on a farm in the same room that we did. For my little kid legs, it'd be one hell of a walk. For me today, it'd be nothing. But seriously, that is how white my town was. I remember when I came to my first job here in Seattle. By the way, my interview day in Seattle was in the day of the WTO riots, and I was staying at the Edgewater, and they were all very concerned. The HR department, the recruiters were like, this isn't normally happen in Seattle. I'm like, oh no, this is fine. I've experienced riots before in my life. Seattle's my kind of town. I didn't have any insight on the whole WTO thing. All I know is there were tear gas and stuff, and like the company I'm interviewed for, I'm saying, yeah, you should stay in the hotel, and the hotel's telling me I need to stay in the hotel. But I remember when I started at that company, and there was like, there's people with pink hair here, because I had never seen it before. It wasn't that it was anything that it didn't like freak me out. It's just kind of like, whoa, there's people here with pink hair, because I'd come from this little white town in the East Coast where like nobody would have pink hair, because that's the way it was there. And so the transphobia and the hatred towards the LGBTQIA community, it's very hard for me to wrap my head around it. Not that I don't understand it or don't want to wrap my head around it. It's never been an issue for me, because I've always been very comfortable in my sexuality. And the reason that I say that is I'm very, very much in the school of thought that somebody who bashes trans people, either literally or metaphorically, or gay or the LGBTI community, they in the closet. I'm of that school of thought that they are not comfortable in their sexuality. They are not comfortable in their own thoughts that are going on inside their heads. That's why they behave the way that they behave. And it's a hard thing for me to understand. It's a hard thing for me to understand with the minority community also. I don't get it. I'm certainly not of the school of thought of, well, there is no color, right? I don't see you as a black person. I just see you as a person. It's like, that's just so feel good, woo woo. I don't want to go cancel culture after talking about cancel culture, but it's like, no, wrong, right? Because people see them as, it's just icky. I'm going to stop there. Shell breaks the internet. I'm going to say it. Transphobia is hatred to the community, is flat effing stupid. There's no reason to hate them, and it's just stupid. That's kind of where my head's at. It's like, I don't understand. I've had a lot of interactions with trans people in my lifetime. They're people. I've had far worse interactions with straight people. That gets 2 squeaks for that, Seattle Police Department. You don't have to thank me for not hating on. There's no reason to. It's like, I don't get it. And it's not woo-woo for me. I don't understand. I think it seems like that's it for people for the comments, and I see the number of eyeballs are going down. I know we've passed the hour. There was a lot to cover tonight. What we're working on. I want to talk about a little bit about what we're working on for Thursday. Yeah, I know. Isn't that wacky that we've gotten to this point? I had somebody today in my circle message me that goes, I just went up to your website just now. It's like, I had no idea how much you're involved in. It's like, this is amazing. Thank you. We know. If you haven't been to the website, you should go to the website. The traffic numbers keep going up there. And the other thing that's really cool on the website is repeat traffic is actually going up and up and up. And repeat traffic tells me that people are turning to us to a source. We certainly expect in the month of December to get approved by Google as a Google News source, and then we start appearing in their search and their algorithm, and then all sorts of cool things start happening there. But here are the stories that we're working on right now. We did want to have the story out today, Monday, about a $2.5 trillion transfer of wealth that will start happening in the United States on January 4th, 2021. However, the Mayor Durkin story of her not doing a second term, and then the court hearing, those two things kept that story in editing. So I don't think that story will be out until Thursday. Because when I look at my crystal ball, I know what I have on my plate for Tuesday and Wednesday. So I don't think that story will get out of editing until Thursday, but we'll roll that story. We have the story on the police document about Antifa and guerrilla warfare. That is 176 pages, and that is with 2 researchers right now. They are going through that entire document. And I don't know if we're going to have that this week, but we are working on that one because that's going to be a big, meaning both length and what we have found in diving into that document. Spelling mistakes and all. I got news for you, Malcontents. It's a doozy. The part of reading that I've done it's just like, it's a doozy. But it's important to understand what the police are being told about Black Lives Matter protesters and protesters on the left and what Antifa is. Big hint to people who write the book. There's no such thing as Antifa. No such thing. Another story that we're working on is the city of Kirkland here in Washington has completed a 2-year study after an incident that happened in 2018 at Menchie's Frozen Yogurt involving an employee who was scared of a black person, and the community response from the phone call that went into the police, and it turned out scary black person was actually a person with the Department of Human Services that was there supervising a CPS supervised visit while the kid and the mom had frozen yogurt. It's definitely not one of my community's brighter spots, but we have that document, 21-page study, is also in the research hopper. So we're working on that. The other thing that we are working on is a piece on how minorities and the poor are far more likely to be accused of committing child abuse when babies present in the hospital and have symptoms that appear to be shaken baby syndrome. And actually, I'm using the wrong term because the medical community is trying to move away from shaken baby syndrome. And to be candid, what they're asking it to be called at this point is escaping my brain. And not only are they more likely to be accused, but people who are white and wealthy are more likely to get a hall pass when they're abusing their kids. And this extends to social workers, doctors, clinicians, and child protective services. And we have an in-depth study that has been done on that, including case studies and all. That will be out next week. So we're working on some great stuff. We will have our continuing coverage of what is going on in the BIPOC and LGBTIQA community in Seattle. We are monitoring what is going on in Cal Anderson. I'm continuing to be basically car bound. If I go anywhere, I can't leave the car because I have my exposure on Monday. They now say 10 days, not 14 days. So I'm sprung free on Wednesday. But I'm basically like trapped in a car doing like drive-through window, thank you very much, or in the house through Wednesday. And so that's where things are at. I'm still of the view, because of the COVID numbers that are out there, that I am not going to go and stream out in the wild unless there's just something really big going on. Or if there's something, say, in the moderate phase after Wednesday, and it's just, hey, Mal, that's one of my nicknames, Mal, there's no one on the ground. There's no OTG. There's no streamer, please. Because this is going down, we need it covered. Then if I can make it work, then I'm going to make it work. And so with that, that's the show. I got to find some way to kind of end this. We are going to announce tomorrow, I hope. I wanted to do it tonight. Again, thank you, Mayor Durkin. We wanted to announce we are going to be doing an incentive for people to subscribe on Patreon. If you are already a patron, you're already in. You're already in. And we are going to let everybody know about that. Hopefully tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest. The other thing is, we're going to share this week on how, when I say this week, it may be Sunday at 11:59 p.m., but it'll be this week, on one of the easiest ways that you can support the Malcontentment Tango. Oh, wow, I just used the old name. Support Malcontent News. We're still in transition. We will fully be Malcontent News on January 1, 2021. But how you can support us in a way, put a couple of dollars in the tip jar and do it for free. And it only takes like 2 minutes to do it. And if at the end of the day, if you don't want to put those $2 in our tip jar, you'll walk away going, because we've always said, support BIPOC, support BIPOC. So if there's a BIPOC streamer that when you see that, when we go, look, if you do this, this, and this, it puts like $2 a month in our pocket. Thank you. You can go put $2 a month in the pocket of a BIPOC streamer if you do the exact same thing. You just got to pick who your favorite person that you want to support. And with that, Malcontents, thank you so much. Quick look at all the comments. Oh my goodness, Jason, thank you for the prove. No, it is not sudden infant death syndrome. That's not what it's called, because that's something totally different. Shaken baby is literally with the, when someone gets a baby and they shake it and the brain is rattling back and forth in the skull. And essentially the infant gets essentially a fatal concussion from it. They get brain swelling. The brain can't expand into the skull anymore. And the brain essentially commits suicide. That's my non-medical term for it, because the pressure inside of the brain builds, and it kills the brain cells, and ultimately either severely disables or kills an infant. And for infants and toddlers who experience this, there is a threshold that if they reach this medical threshold, it is very, very hard for them to recover. But it's not SIDS. SIDS is something totally different. The SIDS is like what they used to call crib death, and that's something that is totally different. Bazing! I saw your comment. Bazing on that. Okay, with that, be good to each other. Malcontent out. See you Thursday.
The Malcontentment Tango is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live as they happen. To defend the First Amendment, using our rights of a free press and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support us is to like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and Instagram. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
Fuck you! You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.